Hi, everybody. I'll give you a moment to connect to sound. Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 1237th New Social Environment. I'm Chloe Stagaman, Director of Programs here at the Rail, and I have the extreme pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Wolfgang Laib and Ann McCoy. And now I'll introduce today's guest and host. Born in 1950 in Metzingen, Germany, Wolfgang Laib originally studied medicine but became disillusioned with Western medicine and its dependency on logic and the material world. Since 1975, Laib has worked exclusively as an artist and has built an international reputation. Laib has presented museum solo exhibitions at the Guangdong Museum of Art in Guangzhou, Fondation Beyeler in Basel, MUAC in Mexico City, among many other locations. And our host today, New York-based sculptor, painter, and art critic Ann McCoy, is an editor-at-large for the Brooklyn Rail. She lectured at the Yale School of Drama Design Department for 10 years and taught in the art history department at Barnard College for 20. Ann's work is included in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, LACMA, MoMA, and others. She has studied alchemy since the early 70s in Zurich and in Rome at the Vatican Library. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ann to get us started with extreme gratitude to Ann and to Wolfgang for this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Chloe. First of all, I would like to thank the Brooklyn Rail for putting this together. And I would like to thank the crew at Speroni Westwater, Angela, Kevin, and Natasha, and everybody who helped. And also, I would like to thank Speroni Westwater because they have given us several decades of, since 1979, of amazing Wolfgang Leib exhibitions. So I'm very grateful to the gallery. This is a huge honor for me. Of course, an enormous fan of Wolfgang Leib. I first heard about him through Harold Zaman, actually. And his work, when I first heard about him, was really more known in Europe. I think that for many of us who are felt pretty disillusioned by the excessive materialism of sort of the big bucks art world and the auction world, having Wolfgang as an artist who's still deeply involved with spiritual practice, he's really been a kind of a beacon of hope for a lot of us. Sadly, when sort of art was severed, through secular modernism from the sacred, we really lost something. I mean, in the ancient world, beginning with things like, the cult of Osiris, where the Egyptians planted little kernels in mud effigies of Osiris and watered them, or things like the Eleusinian mysteries, where the Kista Mysticia probably contained an ear of wheat. Uh, Art was really related to spiritual practice. And I come from the background of Native American. That was my art historical specialty. So when I first saw Wolfgang Leib's work and related it to things like the Apache maiden rituals, I mean, I was, I was really dumbfounded. I can only think of two artists really who, in such a profound way, who link agricultural renewal to spiritual renewal. One is Wolfgang, and the other is the Polish artist Teresa Murak, who works with a Polish Easter plant called Lady Smock. I think that they are two of the most important artists who are. We have so much eco art today, but these two artists really link agricultural renewal with spiritual renewal. And also, there are so many people in the art world who are interested in things like Eastern meditation, also Rudolf Steiner people who find Wolfgang's work incredibly important. I don't, I think that, I don't know, I think that I would really encourage everybody, it's only up for about another week, but I would really encourage everybody to go running down to the Bowery and see Wolfgang's wonderful exhibition. Also, the Brooklyn Rail has been involved with Wolfgang on and off for years. I think Fong has a wonderful interview. We did a program where we showed his film. So I think I would like to just start and turn it over to Wolfgang. Wolfgang, you said that when you were still in medical school, you started working with these eggs, which of course are a cosmogonic symbol extraordinaire. So I'd like you to start there, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
It was like 1972. I still studied medicine. I was in the middle of my medical studies, like 4 years in my medical studies, and then I began already my dissertation. But at the same time, because I was more and more getting in trouble with my medical studies, I found that medicine is in this century it's the natural science, which is uh, mostly about the physical body, but not the more I studied medicine, the more I got into difficulties. So at the same university, there was a very good institute for Indian philosophy and languages. So I began to study also Sanskrit. And then I began in 1972. I was in India for a long time, and I began my dissertation of my medical studies about the hygiene and the purity of drinking water in South India. And I came home from this, and then I made this first egg-shaped sculpture, which I call Brahmanda, the egg of Brahma, out of a boulder uh, it is a local boulder from nearby, from a quarry, which, we are living at the foothills of the Alps. And during the Ice Age, there came these big boulders from the Alps in Norwegian, this ice. And I carved this stone for about 3 months. And until it was nearly Christmas, and everybody thought at the university he will never come back. But it was a decision for me that I would finish my medical studies for another 2 years, um, but I will not become a doctor.
Um, Wolfgang, I think we lost the sound for a minute.
Now it's better.
Yes, perfect. That does it. That did it. Thank you.
I have to talk a little louder. But now is it better?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. So this Brahmanda which I made, that was the decision for me that I would finish my medical studies for another 2 years, but after
We lost the sound again. Oopsie.
that was the decision that I like. It's his first Brahmanda. Then after, as you can see here, so photographs. Much later, I began a studio in South India in 2004. It is now, uh, I began to make again these Brahmandas. You can see here on one photograph is one Brahmanda in front of my studio in South India. And behind is our harvest of organized, which I and and this harvest is together with the commander. And on the other photograph are several commandas sitting under a banyan tree, which is 20 years old, and, which we planted it was at that time about back in the 30s.
Wolfgang, your sound is going in and out a little bit, and I wonder if you can speak a little bit closer to the microphone of your laptop. I think that it's the microphone not picking up your sound. Let's try this, and then if it's still being finicky,
Now is it better? Is it better now?
it's much better. Yeah, right here it's
I
nice.
tried.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And do you want me to move to the next slide?
Yeah. Oh, did you want me to say move? Okay. Yes, I'm so sorry. I didn't know who was going to do it. Yes. Let's go to the fields. Okay.
Mhm.
Wolfgang, do you want to say next too? I'll let you because you're the one who's talking. Okay, go ahead.
I said everything about the commander. Now you have the photograph of the dandelion meadow, uh, collecting the dandelion pollen in the dandelion meadow. It is for me, I did the first one in 1977, so in that I did somehow every year, except this year when you know, I never promised an exhibition in May since decades, but I mean it was this year it was not possible otherwise. So I lost the dandelion season this year, which made me very sad. I have to say. And this is a photograph of a bigger pollen piece, but uh, you can see that that is like 3 by 4 meters, a very big pollen piece. My photograph, this is from Hazelnut Park. This is also a very old photograph, which was, I mean, you can see also how I sifted a huge pollen piece, which was in the Centre Pompidou in Paris, but I think it was in 1992. And this is a very special, which I liked a lot. I think it's a museum in Bordeaux in France, which looks like a church, but it's actually it's a storage place of the harbor in Bordeaux, which was which Jean-Louis Fournon, the director at that time, he made a very one of the most beautiful museums in the world. We have at that time also major, very big exhibitions of nature. And this is one of my actually the first fallen mountains, which I have with the title "The Mountains Not to Climb On," 5 very little fallen mountains, which is high, and somehow from 1985, the first time, and I showed them the first time with a beautiful exhibition with Harald Seemann. That was me and for him was somehow the beginning of the of the relationship. He has fallen so much. So many. This is a special photograph of the Crystal Palace in Madrid. This incredible space in the Crystal Palace.
Wolfgang, I'm gonna try turning your video off for a moment and see if it improves your sound. Let me try this and we'll go to the next photograph and see if your sound is a little bit better.
Okay, now this is a photograph from the Kodaichi Temple in Kyoto at the Rikyū Tea House, where they invited me to make a pollen piece and a milkstone, which was an incredible situation because normally nobody can enter this. It's like a national treasure of Japan, and was an incredible situation there. Is it better now? Do you hear me better?
Much better. Much.
This is a milkstone from very early, also from I think from the mid 80s in my studio. That is my studio. You see the meadow behind where I collect the dandelion pollen. And here's one of the big milkstones which I'm filling with milk. This was a beautiful exhibition in Kunsthaus Bregenz, which was built by Peter Zumthor. Incredible, the architecture. I had a major exhibition there, and I like very much this very simple architect spaces, but really good. This is a photograph of something very special from I made a major exhibition in the Foundation Merz in Torino, in Italy. We were very close friends together with Mario Merz over many years, and then his family. Then they made this beautiful private museum. It's a foundation where the daughter and Marisa Merz, they invited Beatrice and Marisa Merz, they invited me asked me for a major exhibition, but they asked me also for something very special. They said, you made so many exhibitions around the world, so we would like to make something very special. So, and then she visited me here, and then I said, okay, if you want to make really something very special, we invite uh, like 50 or even more Brahmin priests from South India, and we make a fire ritual with them. So, and then she said, I have to sleep about for one day, and then we discussed. The next day, she said, yes, we will do it. I will do that. And then we invited 50 Brahmins from India to make a fire ritual, a Vedic fire ritual, which is like 2,000 years old, always the same, and it had everything. These fireplaces had to be like 2,000 years ago, and these Brahmins made then this fire ritual for twice in a day for 7 days. It was quite an event.
Is this
And then
Wolfgang? Isn't this ritual somehow connected to creation myths? Do you want to talk about it a little more, maybe for some of us?
I didn't understand, Anne, what you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't
No, I think for me it's very complex. For me, of course, it somehow you can also, but I think it is what it is, and it's about. I mean, I think for me, it's like they are burning everything. So I think for me, it's leaving the material world, and it's like the end of the material world, and that is, of course, was for me the most beautiful. But for them, it's also that there's many also these mantras and so on. It's very deeply. Connected to all the Indian philosophy. So there's a lot of different things, which is very beautiful, which I find, I don't want to confine this, and I don't want you also cannot explain it really. I mean, when these Brahmins are extremely complex, they are. I mean, somehow that was also to invite Brahmins who never came to a Western country, and to work with a Brahmin who normally I could never imagine. There was the head Brahmin of one of the major, biggest temples in India, which is very close to where I have my studio, which is in Madurai. The Meenakshi temple is one of the biggest Indian temples, and to have a relationship to such a Brahmin is normally not possible, because Brahmins don't. I mean, they don't. They see they would not have a friendship with a non-Brahmin. They live in their own world. But then somehow, I mean, I know Hermann Hesse, who wrote about the Brahmins, and when you read Siddhartha and so on, you think he met Brahmins, but he never met Brahmins because he couldn't. So I mean that I would become a friend with one of the most important Brahmins in India is quite amazing. I thought that never could happen. So that was quite a deep experience for him and for me, but also something very, very new, that he was ready to make something and come to Italy. And then this exchange, they learned a lot from us, but we also learned a lot from them. So it's a very, I mean, as you see from the photographs, that is something incredible, that something can even happen.
Oh my God. Are they like Jain monks who normally don't travel, in other words?
I couldn't hear it, Anne.
Oh, are they like Jain monks who normally aren't allowed to
I
travel?
think the chains are no. I mean, I think the chains are much more. I don't know how That's much stricter. I mean, the Hinduism is, of course, there's everything is happening. There's a lot of things going on,
Mostly in the temples.
Also in the temples. I mean, it's a Jain temple is totally different from a Hindu temple, and the Brahmin priests. Therefore, there was also, I mean, earlier earlier the Brahmins and the Jains, they had quite some fights with each other because the Jains once won for many centuries. They had quite some followers, but then that was for the general public in India, that was much too strict and much too
disciplined.
Much too much discipline. So therefore, the people liked then all the commotion of the Brahmins much more. So now in India, there are very few chains left. It's mostly in Gujarat, but not in South India. There are no chains anymore. And earlier there were many chains, but people love this all what's going on with Brahmins like that much more. And this is a photograph from inside in the foundation melts. I made then an exhibition for several months with a big, as you can see, a big ziggurat, a step pyramid out of beeswax, and with thousands of rice mountains. Like it goes there all the way to the back and everywhere. Then there's side rooms. It was an incredible exhibition, but also very complicated. Yeah, you see here, I made also one row of these pollen mountains, but otherwise was thousands, I think more than 20,000 rice mountains. This was is a very recent photograph from 2 years ago in the Villa Panza in Varese in Italy. With a beeswax piece surrounded by some rice mountains. This is an exhibition also 2 years ago with a ziggurat, a step pyramid out of Burmese lacquer, red lacquer, and in a very big rice piece.
Wolfgang, could you say a teeny bit more about the rice? I mean, the only rice pujas I've seen are the Jain ones, but could you tell us what inspired you with the rice a little bit more? I'm fascinated by these pieces.
The rice, I mean, as you can see, I mean, I started with, after I finished my medical studies, the first piece was the milkstone. And the milkstone was somehow, it's very simple, but that is really the answer of what I was searching in my medicine. It was, and somehow that was what I felt our existence is about and our life is about, and not the medical science is a science, a natural science, and not. And I thought that, and I still think our life and our existence is much more. So and of course the milk is a food, but it is also is about, and then the stone is something very lasting, and the milk is something for some hours. So it's all this about what our life is, the temporary of our life, and the end of our life, and so on. So I was very interested also in food, and therefore for me the rice is somehow a very general symbol of food. And then I combined it with like here first with the milk and the stone, and there, for instance, this photograph with a house shape which are together with the rice, the stone with the rice, the same, so. Yeah, this is a photograph which is very close on our property in Germany, which is a wax chamber. It's a chamber which we made into the hill of our property. It's about 40 feet long and 12 feet high. beeswax chamber, which is covered all around with beeswax. And I made of course, that's a permanent installation, a permanent artwork. But I made several also beeswax chambers, which were out of slabs, which for temporary exhibitions. So, but meanwhile, yeah, this is another ziggurat, a step pyramid out of beeswax. And these are now the very recent photographs of beeswax pieces, which I made. The one there was the first one in Italy, in Florence, in this Sepolcro Rucellai, a very famous place in Florence from the 15th century. With 5 beeswax towers, which my first beeswax towers, which I call the Towers of Silence. So now this exhibition now in New York with Sperone Westwater, they are much, much bigger, also Towers of Silence. But these there were the first ones like 5 years ago.
Wasn't this like a personal chapel? I love the idea of bringing
this Sepolcro Rucellai was the Rucellai were one of the major families. There's like the Pazzis, the Medicis, and the Rucellais. They were at that time one of the most powerful and richest families in the world, actually, in Florence. And they were also, it was not so friendly. They were mostly, of course, competing with each other. They were bankers, but the Rucellais made a small chapel and very famous chapel, which was somehow a copy of the tomb in Jerusalem, and they wanted to have it as their tomb, but then finally it was never occupied. It was never used as a tomb. They had fights with each other and with the other families. So
was it a copy of the Tomb of the Holy Sepulchre?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yes. So this is now what is the exhibition at Sperone, it's the first time that I made such bigger towers, much bigger than from before. Last year, that was all it's not so easy to make this size of a tower out of beeswax. So I had, of course, the experience from the smaller ones. And at the beginning, which I still have the dream of, I wanted to, and therefore it started like this. I saw in Italy, near Assisi, I saw in a mount, I visited a Romanesque church with very beautiful frescoes, which I wanted to see since a long time. And then on the other side of the valley, which is a very beautiful remote valley with forests, I saw a ruin of a tower standing there. And I immediately inquired who owns this tower, and I still have the dream to cover. It's a tower which is about 60 feet high, about 12 by 12 feet in square, and I would like to cover the inside with beeswax. So that was the dream since then. But then, of course, to do this is not so easy. So therefore, I began to start with the small towers until now. But I think that's still a dream which maybe will once be realized.
When we were sitting on the floor in the gallery, when you and I were sitting on the floor, you were talking about, you have an apartment in New York, and you were talking about looking out at the sort of modern windows. And I thought it was fascinating that some of these towers have like the architectural details like we see in the photographs. And that big one in the back looks like it's from across from your apartment. I thought there was something wonderful about having both types of windows. It made them very, very.
Yeah, it was very funny because when I made them last year, I never thought of uh, of looking at the clock tower in New York, but but when I installed the exhibition uh, 3 weeks ago, then I looked out of our window because we have a small apartment, a beautiful apartment on Madison Square Park, and I looked out a window and we see the clock tower, and then I thought these are really like the middle one, the big one has like windows like the clock towers. But if I couldn't believe it, but and the same happened to me in our village here some years ago. I made these beeswax cigarettes for many years, and then somehow there's a church tower here in the village, which is from 1183, like a Gothic church tower. Very simple from a village, but it has the top of the church tower that has like a cigarette shape with like 7 steps up. Then people came here and say, oh, your church tower is just like your cigarette. And I never thought about that, but somehow that's a very beautiful, unconscious relationship to something which you live unconsciously together.
Wolfgang, could you say a little bit more about your use of the ziggurat? I find them, I mean, with all of the other floor pieces too. Would you like to say something more about the ziggurat?
I mean, the cigarettes are, of course, I mean, what I don't want really to, with art is, I find always it's important that art is not, of course, I can say, which is also true, the cigarette is really, and therefore I also used it. The cigarette also, I somehow have the relationship to the Mesopotamian cigarettes, and therefore I also called them cigarette because I want that. And that ziggurat in Mesopotamia, as my ziggurat, is somehow the dream of earth and heaven together. Or so that is a very, but then also. I think in art it's very important that you are not defining something uh, only this is this, this you do in science. There you have to know why is this and what is this and so on. But I think in art, of course, I mean, a ziggurat is the connection of heaven and earth, but it's also much, much more. And it's somehow, when art is somehow complex and not giving only one description, then art becomes important. If you can define it, then I think then that is much too simple, I think. So here are some photographs. We have also some photographs in the exhibition and some drawings upstairs, which are related to these wax towers.
And I should say there are a couple of the eggs on the balcony at Speroni Westwater
Yes,
too.
yes, that is
Don't want to
that was
forget.
from the last exhibition. We had I think it's already like it was 2018 or something. We had 6 Brahmandas in the last big exhibition, 2018, I think. Yeah, this is a drawing, an older drawing. And this is where, I mean, the photographs I made, it's a very old photograph. Uh, this is a photograph of a railing of a in Pagan in Myanmar um, of a stupa, and somehow what I found beautiful, it's somehow the railing is like a rice house on top of a ziggurat. So for me, the photographs are sometimes I found something and I took a photograph of something which I already had realized long before, but on the other, and then also other photographs I took and then made something after with this photograph. So there is always a relationship to artworks, but to and fro, which I found also with drawing. Sometimes the photograph was before and then after. So here you can see it is a photograph that is certainly from 2001. So it's more than 20 years old, but you can see they have, it's like now in my wax towers, these so-called windows are the same on that. So, but 25 years later.
Such a beautiful photograph. Oh.
And this is a stupa, also in Myanmar, which is somehow, stupa is also something like a ziggurat, it has also has an incredible spiritual identity, which I like that a lot.
Aren't relics usually buried within the stupa?
And you have to speak louder. I
Oh,
couldn't
sorry. Oh,
hear
now
it.
you can't hear me. Aren't relics usually buried within the stupa?
Yes. Stupas are like a reliquary. That is true. Yes, and the ziggurat not. But somehow I feel also stupa with the shape. It somehow there is a cosmic relationship, or it's a very cosmic. Also, what I've in a stupa, when you see, when you know that there are relics inside, or should be relics inside, it has this Then what I find is so beautiful, such an intense thing, is that a stupa then goes beyond our physical body. It means much more. It's like a when the individual becomes eternal, but also becomes the whole world. That is also. I mean, this our Western culture never had, and that is Eastern culture has that very deeply, and that is. I never became a Buddhist, or I never became a Hindu or something, but I learned a lot from Asian cultures, and somehow you can learn a lot which the Western cultures never had.
I've always liked the participatory practice with the stupa. I've circumambulated several in Nepal, and the idea of actually participating in the idea of the stupa was always. Did you ever? Is that something that's interested you?
Say it again, and I
As in
couldn't hear it.
the participatory aspect of circumambulating stupas, is that something that a kind of participation in a ritual?
I couldn't understand what you.
Oh,
Can you speak louder?
okay. Can anyone hear me? The idea
Yes.
of the circumambulation of the stupa, the idea of kind of participating in the life of the stupa as a devotee of some sort, or is that something like the idea of actually participating in that
Can you
practice?
understand what she says? I don't.
I wasn't listening.
Say it again, and
Oh
excuse me.
no, maybe I should just give up. The idea of participating, of
Yes.
circumambulating,
Of what?
Participating in what?
a circumambulating, walking around the base of the stupa.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean that is something incredibly beautiful, and somehow. But I mean, we in Western. I mean that is in Christian processions is the same, or you don't find that?
Um, I
It's
guess
not the same, but I mean,
not
there's the
quite the
same.
same.
The
Not the
processions of Christian festivals, so they can come pretty close. I mean, it's of course for us, then it's much more open to see a procession in Madurai. But I mean, a procession in different Christian centuries came pretty close to that. No?
well. I mean, I'm Orthodox, so I circumambulated over Easter. So I do that. I think it's very meaningful.
Probably not in America.
No, we do it in New York.
Yeah, that's something else. No, but
You could say here here and living in a small village that
But I mean, here in a village now, there is an after Pentecost, there is I mean, there's many processions going on in the Catholic. Here is a very Catholic region, and these processions, they are very old also, and they have like there's one procession here in Weingarten which has like a procession with 2,000 horses going through the meadows and so on, which is I mean, that is 1,000 years old, and somehow
like them, the flower.
yeah, then they also what then German journalists, when they always because we live in this region, then when they come and talk to me, they say, what's about there's also like 10 days after Pentecost here, there is people make like flower carpets not with pollen, but I mean with flowers, big carpets with flowers, and then they go from one carpet to the next in the village. That is very beautiful. That is not true, and of course, but I mean, it's called Fronleichnam, but that's a very special. Yeah, I think also in Italy. In the Catholic regions in Europe, you can find that still a lot. And if I compare this with the Brahmins walking around the temple in Meenakshi Temple, it's not so far away. That is very different. Of course, for us, it's much more colorful. The Brahmins there and very exotic, but it's very close. That's not true.
I think Himmelfahrt is Thursday, or Ascension is Thursday. I was just thinking. These are such beautiful drawings. Do you want to tell us about them? I just thought they were spectacular.
I mean, what can I say about the drawings? I just
They were
made.
they're on Burmese paper, but they're so
They are, yes. This paper which I brought from Myanmar, I like very much since many things since about the first times I went to Myanmar. That was 30 years ago, and the last time I had an exhibition in Yangon in 2017, and that was something very special in this secretariat. It's called secretariat, which was uh, the 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 government. It's a huge complex in the middle of the capital, Yangon, and was the center of the government of Myanmar. But then it was totally closed to the public since many years, and we could make a really beautiful exhibition there. And at that time, I also could find then much bigger paper, much bigger pieces of paper of this very special paper. But it's also there. It's also in India to find. They have now the same paper like we have, and they are very proud of shiny white paper, just the most normal thing. Also in India, it's nearly impossible to find interesting paper anymore.
The colors are really beautiful. They look like so much like the Indian use of saffron and sandalwood paste. They're really lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using oil pastel. It's oil pastel and pencil on this paper. Yeah, this is a photograph which I took also. It's more than 20 years ago. It's like steps to a giant cave near Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu in South India, which somehow these caves and also walking up these bare granite hills as something, and there and there are also many nearby where my studio is, so which was very important for me always.
And we've reached the end of the slides. Is there somewhere you'd like to go next?
No, I think that these caves are fantastic. Uh, I, should we just go back and would people like to talk to Wolfgang? Uh, do we have questions? Wolfgang, what would you like to do?
Up to you. I'm ready for something, whatever
Uh,
you want.
could I maybe ask you a couple questions and you don't have to answer? Okay. Uh, I'm fascinated. Would you like to describe in some way? I feel like the collection of pollen that you do, your interaction with nature is a profound meditation in its own right. Uh, and you said that you're not involved in any specific sect, but I feel like there's the sort of the meditation practice and its connection to your work is something. Is it something you would like to discuss further?
I mean, the collecting this pollen every spring was for me very, very important. Not to get more pollen, but it's somehow the doing this, sitting there in a meadow day after day for many weeks. That is something, it's so different from everything you do or other people do. I mean, if you everybody has to do something in our society. You have to achieve something, you have to work, and you have to do something in this day and the next day and so on. And this I mean, collecting pollen and then having after 3-4 weeks a jar of pollen, and you make a pollen piece which is uh, like 2 feet by 4 feet big, is something totally different. And I think it's what you can achieve. It's not about achieving and working and doing. It's something everything totally different, and I think it's a big challenge to everything what our society is doing or is expecting, or also what you expect from your own life, from what. So I think that is and it was for me. Every year was something very important to live and to do, and I did this for the last more than 40 years.
I think this is so. I've always this is for me. This has been such an. I've always been so impressed by this practice. I had another question for you, and that is, I mean, some of us have read the Rudolf Steiner book on bees, and uh, I'm fascinated by your use of the beeswax. And could you maybe talk a little bit more about what the beeswax means to you, the life of the hive, the kind of energetic possibilities, whatever?
I think all these materials, people always think it's about natural materials, but I think it's much more. It's about that, normally Western art, there's the artist and he creates something. He makes a painting, he makes a sculpture, and it is him who creates and makes it. But I think, of course, there's also I made this ziggurat now, and I made the Brahmanda, or but I somehow all this, also a milkstone is not a white painting which I painted, but it's the milk which I used and which I participate in it. I think the participation is the big difference. I'm not creating this. I'm somehow participating in the incredible beauty of the pollen and it's not, I was very disappointed at the beginning when I had only the milkstones and the pollen pieces, that people said, or curators and art historians, they said this is an incredible color and so on. And so that was, if that would be only the color, I wouldn't do it. And if art would be only about color, then I would not want to be an artist. That is something I mean, the pollen is the beginning of the life of the plants, and the milk is the beginning of the life of animals and humans. So it's something so much more, and it's somehow that I was interested in this. Of course, then of course, because I that was lacking in my medical studies. Therefore, that was it was about the life and about what our life and existence is about, and searching for this. And it's somehow very, very open and has so many layers. And that is what somehow art has. Art is not in science. You have to find a solution. You have to know why is this that and why is this. And art has an open end, but includes everything and all.
I always have been fascinated by the pollen pieces. I remember hearing an Assyrian, someone discussing the Assyrian reliefs and talking about how all of those giant figures are holding these little things that look like purses that are, and a little sponge. They're actually pollinating palm trees. And I think that there's something so amazing that you sort of have started using this material. I don't know. I think it just seems to be like all about the beginning of life in such a profound way.
I mean, it's very beautiful for me all over the world. Because the pollen pieces are so fragile, so you cannot, to see actually a pollen piece is not, I mean, if you have a painting, you can hang it in a museum and it's hanging there for many years. A pollen piece cannot stay. If you have a pollen piece, then it's about 2, 3 months, and then you have to really make it new or so. And if there's a pollen piece in a museum exhibition or in a major exhibition that is for the public all over the world, something so, I mean, so people are so deeply touched, and that is something very beautiful. What art can give, and that, of course, I mean, then I feel like a doctor, like what I wanted to do as a medical doctor. Then you can see how much such a pollen piece can give to the heart of so many people all over the world, and that is somehow for me mm, what my being an artist is about.
It's amazing. You did that pollen piece, I think, at the Museum of Modern Art in about 2013, and it's a piece that people still talk about, which
Yeah, I know
is
that. I
amazing.
mean, I mean, I'm very shy after the opening of an exhibition to stand in my to stand there. But I mean, I saw when in the Fondation Beyeler, which has a lot of visitors. I went there twice or so during the exhibition, and I saw people having tears in their eyes when they saw that, and that is something incredible, you know, that you can also like of course, it's also like in Japan. People in Japan, they cannot get enough from. I mean, they that comes so deep in their heart and in their feelings, and also what they feel then that they lost so much in their actual life now, and they find it suddenly. They find something which they have deep in their heart, but not in their daily life anymore.
I think there are a lot of us in the art world who feel very strongly that your work is really about something that we really need a lot more of in the art world. That you're, and I don't know, I think that we always think of you as sort of a shining example of what art can be.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully,
Pretty depressing at the
hopefully,
moment.
hopefully. I mean, of course, I mean, I became an artist, and I had somehow, as you know, I studied 6 years medicine, and then I wanted much, much more. I wanted to change the world, and to I wanted to make something so much bigger and so much more. And then when I had the first millstones and the first pollen pieces, I wanted to show them, not to become a famous artist, but because I found this is the most important thing in the world, and I want to show this as soon as possible to as many people around the world, and I did, and somehow with a naivete, but I also feel. I mean, there is also I see now with our situation right now, with the political situation, I see in many countries there's so many also young people who are searching really for something else, and not there. Many also young people, they are not satisfied what is going on. They are. I mean, it's so bad you can't believe it. So I mean, there is time to really make something else.
Substance.
I think there is a spiritual revival among the young. I mean, I'm seeing it. I'm not sure if it's hit the art world yet, but I think the Hilma of Klint show was really a great breakthrough, and your work is certainly in that category. So, Chloe, Wolfgang, do you want to say a few more things? Do you want to open it up? I feel like we have a problem because I want to see Wolfgang, and if we see him, we can't hear him. So, I don't know.
We can hear you so clearly, Wolfgang. I'm sorry that we can't do so with your video on. But it's really nice to be able to hear you clearly.
There's Fong who did the interview. Fong should say something.
Yeah. Um, so we do have a few questions. If you have a question for Wolfgang, please post it in the chat and I will turn to you next. Wolfgang, I have some questions to start us off.
Okay.
I'm curious how you think about place relative to the work. When you're working in a particular gallery setting, how does that impact what you show and how you formulate the works in space?
Of course, I mean, I'm very spoiled, and I had exhibitions in the best spaces in the world, and somehow, of course, I also have to. I mean, not only spoiled, but I want to. If I agree to an exhibition, the space has to be me has to be. I have to feel that the space is really good. So that is very important, and somehow, of course, like 40 years ago, when also in the galleries it was I'm always dependent on a neutral floor, and the floor, because I'm in a pollen piece, and also the fragility of a pollen piece and the milk stones and so on, it's not easy. So 40 years ago, the galleries couldn't, you couldn't ask them to make a new floor, but then of course, the art world changed also. So, I mean, I had once a major exhibition in the Haus der Kunst in Munich, a huge exhibition, and they changed and the floors were really, I couldn't use the floor. So they just made a new floor for me through the whole museum, which is not easy, but I mean, otherwise I couldn't do it. And somehow I have also over the years, I think you can you get really much experience how to use a space, also sometimes a difficult space, which is also then a challenge, you know? But I somehow I think I made so many, as I said before, I made so many exhibitions with Harald Seemann, and somehow I learned a lot from him, how to use spaces and not compromise your own work, but really use spaces in a very good way.
Thank you for that answer, Wolfgang. Min is going to ask the next question. I'll pass the microphone to Min.
Hey, Wolfgang and Anne, thank you so much for the conversation.
Louder, I don't hear
Sorry.
it.
Thank you so
Excuse
much for
me.
your conversation. I wanted to ask sort of a follow-up to what you said during the conversation. You described your medium as the beginning of life of humans, animals, and more. I was wondering, what do you hope to create space for, like through the openness of your pieces? And I also wanted to ask if your earlier career or earlier studies in medicine have informed your practice.
Say it again. I don't. Did you understand? Could you speak a little bit louder? I couldn't hear it.
The last.
Yeah,
The
yeah, of
last.
course.
Please ask
So,
again.
yeah,
Louder.
I wanted to ask how you see or you described your medium as the beginning of life. I wanted to ask, what do you hope to create space for through the openness of your works? And then I wanted to ask
Openness.
how
From
your
the,
studies in medicine have informed your practice.
I don't understand. Do you understand? I
Wolfgang,
asked my wife if she understands.
so the first question is why do you it's sort of related to why you choose to leave things open in the work, Wolfgang, and what that serves in the work. And the second question is about how your studies in medicine have
Well, and
impacted your work.
Wait, what do you mean by open?
Min, I'll give you.
Yeah, of course. Earlier during the conversation, you mentioned how the medium that Wolfgang used, how it's taken from nature, but not necessarily about nature, but it's more like the beginning of life, how it opens up possibilities for life. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about, I guess I wanted Wolfgang to elaborate on that slightly, to hear more about what he means by beginning of life.
What do you mean by why is the beginning of life relevant and important, and why does that inspire you?
yes, I mean, because
Thank you.
yes, I think that's very important because I mean, I mean, a lot of philosophy, like Indian philosophy or German philosophy, over many centuries or since 2,000 years or 5,000 years, was always interested in the where is your life coming from, where are you, and where are you going to? So this is like I mean, it's about our existence, or so, and of course, I mean, studying medicine and trying to I mean, when you study medicine and you see all the diseases and people being very sick, people dying, being born, and so on, and that is of course, and then that's a lot of
Life cycle.
and since 10,000 or 40,000 years, uh, uh, humanity was questioning what is our life about, and that is, I think my art is that is one of the main questions, and somehow
The
I'm
beginning, about the beginning.
of the beginning of and of course more and more, as you can see, my work is also not only about the beginning, it's also about the end. So I made this, for instance, some years ago. I also had a big exhibition in New York with ashes, with ashes, Indian ashes, and somehow, and it's about, I think, when I studied medicine, and I think I never changed really my profession. I did in my artwork what I wanted to do as a doctor. So I'm still interested in the same thing, but I did with my artwork what I wanted to do as a doctor, and I couldn't. So it's about the beginning and end of our life, and what all is about our life.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang, for that answer. And thank you, Min, for that question. I'm going to pass the microphone to you, Fong, now.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
Yeah, thank you, Fong, that we can do that. Come, please. No, Carolyn wants to see you too.
Okay. Hi. Thank you,
Excuse me,
Anne.
Fong. I just want to also say hello.
Hello,
So-
Caroline. Thank you for your translation.
Okay.
Essential. I'm sorry that our audio is not as clear as we would have expected it. But yeah, you and I had been talking about this matter, different between religion, spirituality, and everything in between. But there's two questions I remember wanting to ask you the last time you were here. One was that, I grew up as a Buddhist in Vietnam, so I was very aware the differences from Hindu and the idea of reincarnation, because I'm fascinated with it. I felt I have lived the last life as a black man. Would you believe it? I was blind. I was a Delta Blue musician somewhere in Mississippi. And I
True.
really believe that the music moved me inexplicably when I first exposed to it as no more than 4 or 5 years old. That we have a lot of albums sent from my aunt and uncle who was here in America. And I still am very, very, very much follow the music, that tradition. So I want to ask you, because we both interested in some form of reincarnation, which is so important in Hinduism, the idea of Atman, the permanent soul that can be reincarnated. In other words, when you're born as a Hindu, you have to live your life fully in that life, that very life. Let's say I'm
Yes.
born to be a taxi driver. I do not wish to do anything else to promote myself rather than being a good taxi driver in this life. Whereas in Buddhism, the idea of no self, anatta is called, is that it's rebirth, referring to the idea of the continuity of consciousness after death, not the soul. The soul is identified with reincarnation, but rebirth mean you can come back in other form. And I know that, medicine have been your first training, your first aspiration, but having seen the Rothko show have changed you profoundly. And that's have launched you into a journey. It's not that different than Buddha being exposed to behind the palace wall. His father had trying to keep him within, not being exposed to life suffering. But once he see it, he surrendered to the journey, just no more, no less than you did after your Rothko experience. So I wonder whether you ever thought about it, reincarnation or rebirth, which is basically the latter that you sort of already articulate with Min's question, the openness. I take openness mean rebirth. But what about reincarnation, Wolfgang?
I think the reincarnation, like Buddhism says, is something very, very beautiful and has an incredible power on it. And it somehow, what I like a lot is that it like our material world is not believing in things like that. So it's like what I saw when I was shocked when the doctors in the Western hospitals, for them they are totally uh, uh, helpless. I mean, and then they are also if somebody dies,
Mm.
then that is for them the end. There is the physical body disappears, and they are totally helpless. They are also not interested anymore. I saw doctors when somebody when they see somebody is dying, they don't come to their bed anymore. It's somehow finished. It's over. But then, I mean, all this, what you just said, is somehow a belief far beyond the material body. And that is somehow, I mean, I saw these doctors, I mean, it's like a bicycle. They are not, they have no belief, they are also totally helpless. And it's shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. Really shocking. And somehow you see what I think our life is much, much more. It's not ending with this physical body. That cannot be. It didn't. It starts differently and it ends differently. And there's a total different world possible. And somehow what I found always a pity, that not only a pity, I mean, the medicine today, that was in human history, it was never possible to treat the body like this modern medicine does, which we are very grateful for also. But then on the other side, I mean, that is not all. I mean, there's so much more. And then, of course, all this incarnation is, I mean, there is something going beyond the material body and the material world, and that is what is for me important, and which I find to combine the this medicine which is possible now with the belief of something much more. I think this we should get together. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
art can do this also. Art has this possibility to do this, and that is, I find that is therefore I became an artist, because I think art can include everything and can have I mean there is a material world, there is the natural science, but and I think natural science in the best, like Einstein, had this idea that it goes far beyond. Or not. Therefore, Einstein, I find, then when natural science and medicine comes to the level of Einstein, then I find that really good. And I mean that is including the incarnation. I mean he knew that this is not the end, and also made all this. Yes, I think so.
You're absolutely right about Einstein. Some people, including Upensky,
Yes,
who wrote the book, is called The Fourth Dimension, that was very influential
yes.
to Steiner and Du
Mm-hmm.
Bois and the rest of those artists. But you're absolutely right. I want to share this one story. When my grandmother died in the summer of 1976, right after the Vietnam War came to an end, after the fall of Saigon, she knew the day, the time she was going to leave us, and she called up my father to be sure that he would call up all his siblings and grandchildren to gather around her bed. And we did that, Wolfgang. And in Vietnamese Buddhist tradition, when a member of the family die, you then have people come over, very similar to the Jewish tradition. Similarly, you come and give love and homage to the one who just left. And in the following week, there was a big funeral. We all walk on foot, carrying the coffin. Over 100 of us. It was a big funeral. And we buried my grandma in the family plot, which has been there forever. But I was one of those people who was supposed to sprinkle the rice from the house to the cemetery, to her burial site. And I were being playful with my other cousin. We forgot to spray the rice for a good maybe half a mile or more. She appeared in my father's dream that very night, Wolfgang, and say, I have lost my way home. And my father had to redo the whole thing over again, sprinkle the rice from the house to her burial site. So these are things that we grew up in belief. There's a spirit behind the physical being, as you have just mentioned. Another question. I see Aggie's here. Maybe Aggie can even voice her own insight on the matter. But have you ever? You must have heard of sacred art that was created. Father Marie-Alain Courtier. In the mid-30s, of course, he commissioned Matisse Chapel, and then Notre Dame du Haut with Le Corbusier, and later became a mentor to Dominique de Menil and helped to create, of course, the Rothko Chapel. And I wonder whether you ever came across any of Dominique. You know Aggie, but have you ever met Mrs. de Menil?
No, it's a pity, but not.
I see. Maybe Aggie, I'm sure Aggie must have met her and knew about it. Anyway, Wolfgang, I think we need to create a Wolfgang Laib chapel I think we wanted to make something permanent because everything here
Before it's too late, yes, we should. It's urgent. Before this physical life ends, or?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it's an imminent necessity. We
yes,
have to
yes,
advocate for this potential
yes.
chapel.
It is,
Anyway, thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you, and back to you. And I would urge that everybody should come and see Wolfgang' brilliant, profound show at Angela West Quarter as soon as you can before it ends. Back to you, Chloe. Thank you.
Thank you, Fong. Thank you.
Thank you, Fong. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. And now Wolfgang is going to close us out with a reading, which I'm so delighted by.
Okay.
So,
I
Wolfgang,
promised that. Okay.
and then after that, I promise I'll turn Wolfgang's video back on while we all say
Okay.
goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. I have two out of my book which I published. I on the occasion of this exhibition in Stuttgart in the Kunstmuseum Stuttgart, the director asked me to. She said, "You have so many catalogs and books, and I want to not make another one which is similar." And she asked me to make a book about the literature which influenced my life and work. And that was only half a year before the exhibition. And then I said, but you could work for several years for such a book. Then she said, yeah, you don't have to make it too big, make about 80 pages, that would work then. And then finally the book has 350 pages. So, because I thought that this doesn't come so easily again. But then as I said, we spoke about now in this exhibition with Angela Westwater. I made a wall drawing on the wall, which I decided just when I came there, and a wall drawing with a text by Lao Tzu. And I read this now to you. That is out of the Tao Te Ching. The chapter 37. So, Tao does not act, yet it is the root of all action. Tao does not move, yes, yet it is the source of all creation. If princes and kings could hold it, everyone under them would naturally turn within. Should a doubt or old desire rise up, the nameless simplicity would push it down. The nameless simplicity frees the heart of desire and reveals its inner silence. When there is silence, one finds peace. When there is silence, one finds the anchor of the universe within himself. So that is it. And then maybe, wait, I have another small text. Page 258. That's also very beautiful. Maybe two. Yeah, that is out of the Chandogya Upanishad. It's one mantra, which I like which I also used in some of my drawings since quite some years. So that is where one sees nothing else, hears nothing else, understands nothing else, that is the infinite. But where one sees something else, hears something else, understands something else, that is the small, the finite. Verily, the infinite is the same as the immortal, the finite is the same as the mortal. So that is.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those readings, Wolfgang. That was such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
way
Thank you.
to close.
Thank
Thank you to you and to Anne again for this conversation, which has been such a
Yes, thank you,
pleasure.
and thank you for everything.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, Wolfgang. This was such a privilege. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Wolfgang,
Rail.
I'm going to try to turn your video back on so you can see us all say thank you and goodbye here.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I'll give you a button to press so that you can turn it on. Here we go. Thank you to you, to Anne. Thank you to Natasha at Speroni Westwater, who was so helpful in preparing for today and bringing all those images together. Thank you to Carolyn and Wolfgang for the images at the beginning of the slides, which were lovely to be able to see. Thank you to the Terra Foundation for American Art, who sponsor the New Social Environment Program and make conversations like this one possible. They also support our archive, which you can view on the Rails YouTube channel. The Rail has been free and independent for 24 years. A donation directly supports us, our writers, our staff, and our operations. You can support our work through the link in the chat. And if you're free tomorrow at 1 p.m., join us for a conversation with author Lydia Millett and Mandana Chaffa on the occasion of Lydia's recent publication, Atavists Stories. And as is Rail tradition, you can now turn on your microphones and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you so, so much for joining us today. And thank you to Wolfgang and Anne.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
Wolfgang.
Wolfgang.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Anne.
Thank
Wolfgang.
you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Anne.
Bye. Thank you.
Fong.
Congratulations on the show, Wolfgang.
Thank you so much.
And go see the show, everybody.
Do go see the show at Speroni
Hey,
Westwater.
go see the show. Aggie, I see you at the show. I'm going to join you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh, there she is. There she
This
is.
is